Very warm welcome to SWAM, course on design thinking and innovation. This is week 12. If you remember, in week 11 we did low fidelity prototyping. Okay, we're going to slightly further refine this prototyping. So we'll call it as medium level fidelity prototyping. Okay, so it's what we learned in the last week. We're going to take it a bit more further. Okay, and then the next week we'll do actually final prototyping. Okay, so these are the different stages in the level of prototyping. All of them are useful. It depends on the problem you're trying to solve. It's good to have a look at all of them and use the ones that you need to use. Okay, so let's go ahead. Section A12, week 12. We'll start with a quote, again a very profound quote by Dr. Vandana Shiva. The way you design the world in your mind is the way you relate it to in the real world. Okay, should I repeat it again? The way you design the world in your mind, what is your perception of the world in your mind, is the way that you actually finally relate it to in the real world. And when you design with a deep recognition of its interconnectedness, okay, that means that things are related to each other. If something happens somewhere, it actually affects something else happening somewhere else. Okay, and it is this deep recognition of interconnectedness, you will nurture those relationships. Those relationships are very important. That means the whole world, the ecosystem is extremely important, and we need to keep this in mind while we are designing. Let's go ahead. So let's look at the process. Okay, so we'll do something called as minimum viable product, called as MVP. If you think some part of the design idea that you want to actually make sure it works, then you do something called as proof of concept. Also, if your product has a lot of communication information that needs to be organized, then information architecture is a great way to do it, because it not only gives the steps to be followed, but it also gives you the direction through which you can take yourself through this information. And the last one is experience design. More on that when we go to that section, but actually is designed experiential, that you can actually sense it with all your senses. And how do we actually make sure that we make use of this in the design that you're trying to do? Okay, so we have the tools as the next part of it. We apply it in the project that you're doing, and then there is a beautiful case study, very detailed case study, a product design case study of a very simple thing, conceiving of a storage device that is used for reducing post-harvest waste of vegetables. Okay, so we'll have a look at it. So this is prototyping part 2. The content is as follows. What exactly do we cover in prototyping part 2? What is minimum viable product, or MVP? What is information architecture? What is experience design? And further studies and references. Along with the MVP, we will also do proof of concept. It's called also POC. So why are we doing this? So this is actually, if you look at it, is the fourth phase of the design process. You know, we did the research, we did the analysis, we did the ideation, and now we come to the stage of building your idea, making your idea come true. Okay, so you need to create a prototype. you start with a very low fidelity or a rough idea of your prototype, and in this stage you make it a little better. Okay. So, this is that stage of it. And if you look at it, you look broad in your research, you kind of bit concentrate in your analysis stage, and again you go wide because you have to think of many ideas, and then you decide and prioritize and take forward one of them. Okay, and that is the stage we are in right now. And the next stage is that whenever you do something, you get feedback, and depending on the feedback, you can improve what you are trying to do. That is the intention here. Okay, so let us get into details of it. Okay, what exactly is prototyping part 2? So, prototyping part 2 involves what we call as medium prototyping. Okay. The next version of the ideas and concepts that you had in mind. Okay, we did low fidelity paper prototyping, mock-ups in the first part of prototyping. Okay, it also means that you have to try it out, right? And what we see is that if you can actually look at it from the bare minimum product that you can do, so that you can test it. Okay, that's called as the minimum viable product. Or there is a part of it that you want to test it, it's a new technology you are doing, or it's a new hinge that you are trying to do, or it's a new mixture of things that you are trying to do for the first time. Then it's better to build that particular part, okay, and test it out. Okay, so that's the proof of concept, as well as understanding how the user would, interact and experience the concept, along with information architecture. And also at this point of time, you can also decide what technology and medias that you need to select. So, if you look at it, we have done the soft prototyping, we are on to the medium prototyping. In the next stage, we will actually make actual hard prototypes. Okay. Prototyping part 2 will take you much more closer to the final design that you had in your mind. Okay, and it helps you visualize, make it tangible. Okay, once it is tangible, you can give it to the user, test it, get feedback, and depending on the feedback, you actually iteratively try to redesign what you thought of. When is it done? If you look at it, almost as like in the first part, all creative and innovative domains, whether it's architecture, arts, music, film, science, technology, communication design or product design or animation, will do soft prototyping, media prototyping, and then hard prototyping as they get more and more convinced that their ideas are correct. Okay, so it's applied in all creative fields, okay, as well as science. Okay, so it's something that everybody does. Before you actually make sure it works, you try it out. Okay, so if you look at medium prototyping, it's a little better than the last time in the sense that it is much more surer. Okay, so from initial sketches, these become actually draft sketches. You have 3D renderings and scale models, that's for architecture. For arts also very similar, draft sketches, drawings and scale models. For film, now you have a draft script. Okay, your scenario sketches are much more refined. Okay, your settings and character sketches are much more surer. Okay, animation also follows the similar thing. You have the draft script, your scenarios are much better. You have almost selected the character. Okay, and you can put it together as a set of animations and called as animatics, right? And you can play it along with the sound. In graphic design, from initial layouts, you come to draft layouts. Okay, and then you can make paper prototypes and you get the feel of it and you can print these out, right? That's in 2D graphic design. In product design, your initial idea sketches have become draft sketches now. Okay, and you can start doing the renderings and you can do both minimum viable product as well as the proof of concept here. Okay, digital design again, they've gone from initial sketches to digital sketches to and yeah, from low fidelity to medium fidelity, information architecture of the structure of what you want to do, the path and the direction that you want to take, okay, and yeah, you end up with medium fidelity prototypes. Okay, in science and technology, you still have to make sure your equations and formulas work. Okay, and now you can draw and visualize that if it's possible. You can make working models, and you can do an experimental test setup for validation. Okay, so the fact is that the prototyping is a very important aspect of bringing a product from an idea to a final stage. Okay, so let's look at what is a minimum viable product. It's also called as MVP, and you try it out because it's just simple model of it. Okay, as the name suggests, it's just got enough features or functions in order to get a feedback from its users. Okay, so it's very easy to do it. Okay, it doesn't take that much of time. Okay, it is also part of a startup. I would call it as a lean startup, where you still have not the money to go into full-fledged prototyping. So you're testing and trying it out because MVP saves you time, efforts, and costs, which is very important when you start and setup. If you look at it, the simple version helps to quickly visualize, test, and get feedback, change or iterate in order to make the next iteration. Okay, and you can see that these are sketches of the Marbo, a shareable Marbo product, which we saw as a case study in our last presentation. Okay, and then they have made a foam model out of it with detachable data units. Okay, it's a very simple prototype to get feedback from the users whether they would like the concept or not. Okay, so you can see that it's just got sufficient details in it to show what it can do. See, for example, the kids say that we can scribble on it, I can change the way it looks, I can detach this marble and give it to my friend. Okay, can I do something else with that? And yeah, the last sentence is, we all want it. Okay, so it looks like what we thought of makes sense, right? So that's the minimum viable product. Okay, very close to it is something called as a proof of concept, especially very useful if you want to try out something within your idea, which could be to do with a detail, a new mechanism. Okay, so you kind of just prototype that part of it and demonstrate it to the user, or he tries it out and you get a feedback from it. Okay, is a great way to test the functional, technical, material aspects. You got a new material, you want to make use of it. You don't know how it would actually work, so you just do a prototype with a new material. Again, just like the previous one, this also saves a lot of time, efforts, and costs. Okay, and helps one to quickly visualize, test, get feedback. And again, basic intention is to iteratively change it in order to get a better version of it. Okay, so this is an example from the pesticide sprayer concept that we saw a long time back in, I think it is week 3 or 4, where he did many sketches of that, and they actually made a prototype to test out one of them. Okay, because he was not sure. So he's put together here a metal section, he's put the spray can over there, and he wants to see if this is a viable option, because he's not sure whether he should push it and pull it, or whether he should harness it into his body, right? So that he can, it goes much more better that way. Okay, so he's still, he has got 2-3 concepts in mind, but if you can quickly make a model and try it out, nothing like it. So it's another example of a mock-up of one of the concepts. It's physical, so you can test it out with users and get feedback, and then decide whether to go ahead or not. Okay, so let's go on to the next topic, which is actually information architecture, especially very useful if information is important in your design. Okay. If communication of information is of importance in your design, then doing the structure of it, which we call it as architecture, is very, very helpful. Okay. So, how do we do this? It refers to the structure and organization of information. You know, what comes after what, okay, what category should it be there, okay, and what should follow what. Okay. So, if you look at it, so it helps you with direction, it helps you with knowing, okay, this is the category, the big category. Okay. So, it basically helps you in locating and navigating through information and makes it easy and understandable. Okay. Very, very important if you are doing digital products, okay, like websites, okay, if you are doing control panels, okay, of a car or a motorcycle, or you know, much more crucial if it's a high speed train, or let's say control panel in a nuclear power station, or that of an aeroplane, right? Yeah, different complexities, there are many displays, and how do you actually organize it so that information becomes easy for the person who's driving the vehicle to manage it, right? Wayfinding systems for public places and roads, right? You go into a new city, you want to find that particular street, so the signage system becomes extremely important. You go to a hospital, you want to find which section is the emergency ward, okay, and instead of always talking to the security guard and trying to find out where it is, if there is a good signage system, it actually, you know, lets you go into that particular place. The same holds good for, you know, layout of a museum, or let's say shopping center. Okay, and even information architecture is very, very important if you are making a catalog or a directory. You know, you have a directory of all the museums in India. It's an excellent book. You want to find out what is there in, let's say, one of the places. Okay, how easily can you actually locate it? Or let's say you are interested in a museum of matchsticks. Okay, how do I look at this catalog and get to that particular place in a jiffy? Okay, so the person who has to design it has to think of a very nice way of actually organizing this information so that it is easy to find and locate. Okay, so I guess you got the gist of it. It's got multiple applications, and it's actually extremely easy to do it. Okay, so I'm just showing you some of them. Digital interfaces, it helps you with navigation, where to put the icons and what can be made into icons. It's part of the menu. Okay, and yeah, it also, the buttons and hyperlinks become part of the digital information. Okay, control panels, that means buttons and switches, knobs, sliders, okay, interface displays, all have to be organized, okay, in a given surface. Wayfinding systems, that could be signages, so you can use, you know, symbols and text, and like in India you need to use multiple languages. You make use of arrows to show directions, color to differentiate between different aspects. The same holds good for navigating inside a museum. So, layouts, navigation, the directory, the use of arrows. Same thing, if you go to a shopping center, you need the direction signage to show where what section is, so that you do not waste a lot of time trying to figure out where something is, okay, where all the facilities are. Okay. The same happens with all public places. Okay. It needs the listing of those facilities, signages become important, language becomes important, directions become important, and finally navigating through this. Directories, we said you need an extremely good index, listing of the content. For example, page numbers can reveal a lot, and icons can actually, you know, differentiate between sections. The same holds good for libraries. You know, it's quite nice to go to the library and try to locate a book, because the book, you know, if you go to the catalog of the library and look at it, it will give you a number, and it's very easy to locate. That number refers to that particular shelf or the row of shelves in which the book is there. And if you can locate that place, and then you can locate actually according to the numbers the exact book which is kept in the exact place. Okay. So, it needs a lot of pre-planning, right, and the signage system and the organizing of this information so that it is actually easy to locate this particular information. Okay, so this is a sample from a web space that we did as part of DSOS. It's the section on calligraphy. There are two parts to it. You can actually learn about how to do calligraphy, and it has also got examples of calligraphy done by experts. Okay, and there are further sections in it. Okay, so this was, through brainstorming, discussions, all that, we finally actually ended up with this structure. We also found that this structure is probably the best way to actually look at it, to probably get the information out of it. So, if you go to the DSOS website and say calligraphy, it takes you to this particular resource. Here is shown, just the organizing, very general organization, because we were doing the wayfinding signage system for Mumbai suburban railway stations, and this is a thought behind it. So, if you go to a railway station, you will find the ticket counter, information regarding what trains which come at what time. There is an enquiry counter, there are employees of railways, there are places to eat and shop, there is a waiting room, there are toilets and other facilities. How do I actually build a signage system so that it becomes easy for a traveler to locate these facilities and also know that these facilities actually exist in this particular railway station. Okay. Yeah, so just few samples of it to get to, for you to understand what is information architecture. Now we come to a very, very important subject. It's called experience design. Okay, as the name suggests, experience design means you being able to experience the product itself. Okay, so is the design of products, it can be both physical products or digital products. It can be also services like what happens in a bank or a post office, or it could be a system that you are thinking of, which will help you locate many things inside that to facilitate easy understanding. The engagement is very satisfactory and you come out with a good experience. Okay, so let us try to understand each one of them. Easy understanding means it is easy to locate, understand it, okay, or comprehend it. It is easy to navigate, okay, and it is also easy to use this. Okay, you can look at a teller machine for a person who does not know how to use it first time. Okay, does the teller machine facilitate itself, understanding how to make use of it? Yeah, so if it does it in a very nice manner, then the experience of using the teller machine becomes experiential. Okay, you come out with a good experience, and you don't hesitate to go next time because you already understood how to do it, and you're confident you can do it again. Okay, satisfying engagement, that means it feels good to interact. Okay, it's functional and it works well. Okay, that's with anything which works well, and also it's a pleasure to interact with that. The feedback is really good. Okay, I'm very happy with this. Okay, so that's the thing. Okay, good experience. Okay, it feels comfortable and it's also memorable. Okay, so let's look at some of the examples of it. Okay, so a ceiling fan. Okay, just imagine it recognizes your presence and it will set its speed according to the ambient temperature. It makes no noise, whether it's low speed or high speed, and it will switch off when you leave the room. Okay, how nice an experience that is, right? You don't have to bother about switching it on and switching it off. Okay, you can intervene it if you're not very happy with what it does by its own. Okay, but a fan like this will be a much better experience than something else. Okay, especially in a crowded place, it can locate if people are actually needing the fan, and it comes into being, and so that's the part of the ceiling fan. I'm just a grinder mixer. Okay, very important element in the kitchen. Okay, makes a lot of noise, but can it actually grind silently? can it mix? When you mix, you have to keep looking at it. Has it become really fine? Okay, you have to open the lid and do it. But you can actually set between very fine grinding to very rough grinding. Okay, and gives a signal when the grinding is done. Okay, so you don't have to be there looking at what is happening, but it can do the work on its own, which would be a much better experience than the ones which are presently available. Okay, let's look at an email application. That's every day, right? Right now they're all listed one below the other. Maybe some are highlighted, but that's it. Okay, but let's say it reveals the mood of the message. If it is a happy email, or it's an email which is actually complaining about you. Okay, it shows the importance of that email or the urgency of the message. You can identify if the message is from friends, colleagues, or strangers. Okay, so you can easily do it, and if you're working on a project, it can say, okay, if it is shaped or colored like this, it is part of the project that you're trying to do. It would make use of the space that you have. It makes use of size, color. It can have icons, etc., to visualize and organize the emails appropriately, which will be a much nicer experience, right? It's like going back to the good old days, when you got your postcard, you're so happy to receive the postcard because it had the handwriting of the person inside it, and there were markings on it. There's a stamp on it. There's a lot of experiential element, which is memorable. You'll probably not throw it. You'll actually store it. You'll keep it in a certain place. So that was what the good old postcard used to be like, right? It had a bit of the personality of the person who sent it when you received it. Emails, if it can actually navigate or maybe graduate to that stage, then the experience of actually looking at the email would be that. Okay, so I'm just again telling you few experiences. Okay, so let's do this. Okay. We have a scenario 1 and a scenario 2. Okay, this is with respect to going to a bank, and you're a student and you want to get a loan to buy a laptop, let's say. Okay, so the first scenario, okay, you have to locate a bank, okay, which gives out this loan. You have to find out when it operates, the days and the time. Okay, then you go to the bank physically. Okay, when you go to the bank, typically you actually ask the security person where the loan section is, because there are no signages really, or if the signages are there, it's so tiny and within that environment you can't locate it. Better to ask the security person. So he'll say go there, and you'll see that there is a long queue in that place. So you stand in the queue, and at the end of the queue, the person will give you a form to fill. And he says you bring all this list of documents that you need to produce it. After that only we can process your loan. Okay, so again, you go back home, collect all these documents, make copies of it, make signatures, fill up the form, okay, and then go back to the bank, stand in the queue again. At the end of it, if all the documents are correct, okay, if they are not correct, you have to again go back and get the correct document and repeat the whole procedure again. Let's say if it is correct, the bank will say come after 15 days and your loans might get sanctioned or will get sanctioned. Okay, so you can see that this is the typical way a bank would operate. Okay, let's assume this is the new scenario. Okay, you locate the bank online and search for the loan facility within the bank. It says fill up this form online and submit the documents. Okay, and you can actually take an appointment with respect to date and time, because it says that the documents are fine, but we need to physically verify these documents. So you have to come at least once to the bank. Now you go to the bank at the appointed time. The documents are verified because there is no queue now. Okay, and the loan is sanctioned immediately if the documents are filed. Okay. In addition, the bank is not crowded. There are no queues. They have comfortable seating in case you need to wait for a while. There's option of drinking water or tea on the house which is provided, and you'll see that this experience is something which is very nice compared to the old one, where you have to take so much of trouble. On top of it, you have to waste a lot of time to do it and maybe repeat it many times, okay, as against that this is. And here also you can think of a way that documents can be verified online, then it becomes almost, not necessary to actually go to a bank at all. You'll get the loan sanction online itself, right? So that is a much better and simpler thing to do. Okay, so we've got the difference between the two. Okay, and I can say that that's a great experience. But in real life, there are many things in life which are of great value to us, and also they have great experiences. Okay, there is no place of worship which doesn't have these experiences. Okay, touch, in a place of worship, it uses the sense of touch, the sense of smell, the sense of taste, the sense of hearing, and also the sense of sight, right? So your sensories become very important part of having these experiences. Let's think of another one. In a restaurant, okay, you go for a celebration, you touch the food, you shake hands with your friends, you hug them, you dress up, okay, very important for you. There's a smell of food, the taste of food, you're hearing conversations, and the ambience is beautiful to your sight, right? So it makes use of all your senses, and it's a good experience. You want to go back to that restaurant again. If the experience is not so good, the food is not so good, you'll probably not go to that place again. Okay. Celebration of festivals. Festivals are always like this. They're very celebratory. You touch, there are many ways of touching. Okay, you dress up, right? Smell is an important aspect of celebration. Of course, taste, it's full of sweets and good food. Okay, yeah, for hearing there are bells, there are chants. Okay, and sight, of course, is full of colors, and yeah, so it uses all the sensories, right? So now you can think, what are your great experiences? Okay, where do you go to get good experiences? Okay, so all I'm trying to say is that all these are human creations, right? Place of worship, going to a restaurant and you having a good experience within the restaurants, or even festivals, okay, celebrating festivals. Okay, what we need to do is that when we are designing something, can we bring some of these experiences into the design of the product so that the experience of using the product is great? Okay, so that's the big question. Okay, so with that we'll stop this section. Okay, why is prototyping part 2 important? Let's have a look at it. It takes you further closer to the final version of the idea or concept and helps you to visualize, make it tangible, test it, get feedback, and again make iterations before the finalized design is done. Okay, it involves medium prototyping, what we call as the next version of idea and concepts, and we've gone through many of the tools that you can use. One is making out the minimum viable product, MVP, or making a proof of concept if you have a new material or a technique or a function that you want to test out. Information architecture, IA, as well as understanding how the user would interact and experience, XT. This makes it very, very important that the part 2 part of it is actually an extension of part 2. And also it's the stage where you can actually look at what choices of technology and medias that you can actually make use of in your design. Okay, so we moved from soft to medium, and in the next stage we'll go into hard prototyping. Okay, so what does it involve? Okay, so I'm just summarizing what we did till now. We had a look at how to do a minimum viable product, how to do a proof of concept, how to do information architecture, and how to do experience design. So again, we've given some really nice references here. The reference to dsource.in still stays. It's very useful because it has got many resources connected with this subject. There's a beautiful book called Sketching User Experiences by Bill Buxton, who is a principal scientist now at Microsoft. Okay, it's very nicely done to say that visualizing and sketching is actually extremely important for ideating. Okay, Being Digital looks at the future world by Nicholas Negroponte of MIT Media Lab. Very easy to read, nice to read, very informative. Bill Mockridge, who's a co-founder of IDEO, designer, he's written this book called Designing Interactions, and it's full of conversations with people who made a difference in digital design. Okay, so again, very, very informative and resourceful book. Okay, and of course, Stewart Brand from again MIT Media Labs, he's written this book called The Inventing the Future. Again, extremely nice book to read. Okay, so we'll end with a quote. This is by Stewart Brand. Okay, again, very interesting quote. You can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you can never count the number of apples in the seeds, right? Because an apple can produce so many seeds, and that can give rise to many number of apples. Okay, so that's a extremely interesting quote. Okay, so let's summarize week 12. Okay, we just did the process with MVP, POC, IA, and XD, right? And we will move on to the tools in the next section, followed by the project and then by the case study.